Not so fast. A federal judge puts a hold on the administration's directive on bathroom rights for transgender students. Housing crunch. Louisiana flooding could make an already tight Baton Rouge housing market even worse. Turkish wedding attack. Dozens die, many of them children, in a suicide bombing at a weekend celebration of marriage.
It wasn't easy being Mother Teresa, okay?
And the priest who made the case for Mother Teresa's sainthood describes her challenges and heroic faith. Those stories and more on EWTN News Nightly for Monday, August 22nd, 2016. Good evening from Washington. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Brian Patrick. Fresh back from vacation, President Obama plans to visit flood-ravaged southern Louisiana tomorrow. Our chief White House correspondent and political director Lauren Ashburn has more. Lauren?
Brian, 10 golf games and 2 weeks of sunshine later, President Obama is back in the White House. He's being criticized roundly for staying on Martha's Vineyard while Baton Rouge flooded. The president and his pals played for hours on end, while devastating flooding wrecked homes across South Louisiana. Donald Trump visited Baton Rouge Friday. Louisiana's governor says it was helpful.
It helped to shine a spotlight on Louisiana and on the dire situation that we have here, that it was helpful. And I will tell you that I also appreciated the good phone call, the conversation that I had with Governor Pence, who was sincere and genuine when he called, and we spoke for a long time on Friday morning about their desire to be helpful.
And today, Hillary Clinton is calling for a national plan to address the disaster expected to cost millions in cleanup. The president's absence on the ground spawned this internet meme of him golfing on top of a flooded car.
But what I can tell you is that
in the press briefing room, Press Secretary Josh Earnest defended the president's decision to stay on vacation.
the president has been focused on the response and not, frankly, as concerned with the optics as all of you appear to be.
The president will head to Baton Rouge tomorrow. The schedule has not been set. Hillary Clinton has not announced plans to travel to Louisiana. Brian?
Lauren Ashburn at the White House. Thank you, Lauren. Meanwhile, 3 disaster recovery centers open in Louisiana today. People from federal and state emergency management offices will answer questions about disaster assistance. More than 2,800 people remain in shelters across South Louisiana. An estimated 60,000 homes are damaged, and more than 106,000 have registered for federal disaster aid. Turning to politics, the State Department says it is reviewing nearly 15,000 previously undisclosed emails from Hillary Clinton's private home server. Lawyers for the department told a federal judge today they expect to release the first batch of these new emails in mid-October. That means those new messages could go public just before the November presidential election. The department says it doesn't know yet what portion of the email is related to Clinton's tenure as Secretary of State. Former Secretary of State Colin Powell pushes back against Clinton's assertion that he suggested she use her private email account for non-classified information. People magazine reports that Powell says in a Twitter message that Clinton's people have been trying to pin her email scandal on him. Clinton has said that she and Powell were in agreement on the use of private email by secretaries of state. Clinton, however, had a private email server at her New York home. Donald Trump denies he's flip-flopping on his immigration plan. This weekend, Trump addressed the issue with a group of Hispanic supporters, saying he still wants to find a fair but firm way to deport the 11 million people living in the U.S. illegally. His new campaign manager says Trump's plan to deploy a so-called deportation force is to be determined. Other stories our EWTN News Nightly team is covering in today's world. Pope Francis asks for prayers for victims of a suicide bombing at a wedding in Turkey. The death toll now is a staggering 54 people, many of them children. Jason Calvi joining us tonight with more. Jason?
Brian, Turkey's prime minister says they don't know the age of the attacker. Although earlier the president of Turkey said he was a 12 to 14-year-old boy, President Erdogan says early findings point to the Islamic State. The group has a history of using children as weapons, sending them to their deaths strapped with explosives.
A Kurdish wedding party Saturday transformed into tragedy. Nursi Saglam was on a rooftop overlooking the celebration.
Kınalarını yaktılar, gelin damat.
This witness says all of a sudden she heard an explosion. Then body parts poured on her. The blast rocked a Kurdish neighborhood in Gaziantep, Turkey. The city of 1.5 million is just 60 miles north of Aleppo, Syria. Visiting the blast's damage today proves too much for the bride and groom. Today, their guests are being buried. A Turkey official says at least 22 victims were under 14. No group has claimed responsibility for the attack, but Turkey's president says it looks to be the work of the Islamic State. In June, suspected ISIS suicide bombers killed 44 people at Istanbul's airport. Today, Turkey's foreign minister says the country is determined to fight against ISIS. He says they'll also support forces doing the same. And at the Vatican,
Santa Maria, Mater Dei, preghiamo per le vittime, morti e feriti.
Pope Francis prays for victims and for the gift of peace.
ISIS runs schools teaching boys radical Islam. ISIS videos have shown these children killing their opponents, and Vice President Joe Biden will be in Turkey later this week.
What motive would ISIS have to attack a Turkish wedding?
Well, there's an expert from the Economic Policy Research Foundation of Turkey, and he says really ISIS is retaliating. That's because Syrian Kurds are making progress in fighting against ISIS in Syria.
A Kurdish wedding. Thank you. Jason Calvi. A Central California wildfire forces more evacuations. At least 50 families near Lake Nacimiento had to leave their homes. That fire has already burned 47 buildings, forcing the Hearst Castle to close. The wildfire in San Luis Obispo County is only partially contained. It has been burning now for more than a week. 2 wildfires in Washington state threaten homes there. Hundreds of people in North Spokane evacuated after flames destroyed nearby buildings. The second fire started to the south of that city near Spangle, Washington. It's already burned several homes. Wisconsin's Attorney General launches an investigation of the police shooting that sparked 2 nights of violence in Milwaukee. People lit fires and vandalized the Sherman Park neighborhood after a black officer shot and killed a black suspect August 13th. Police have not yet released body camera video of the shooting. The police chief says it clearly shows Sylville Smith was holding a gun when he was shot as he turned toward the officer. Attorney General Brad Schimmel says he doesn't see a conflict in using former Milwaukee officers in the investigation. A federal judge in Texas puts a hold on the Obama administration directive on bathroom privileges for transgender students in public schools. Texas and 12 other states asked the judge to halt that directive. The federal government told public schools last spring that transgender students must be allowed to use bathrooms and locker rooms of their choice. Republican leaders say they support common sense privacy safeguards. A new report on sexuality and gender identity says the supposition that people are born that way is not supported by science. The report, published in the New Atlantis Journal today, finds no major biological explanations for sexual orientation. Members of the non-heterosexual population have a higher risk of anxiety disorders, and only a minority of children who identify as a different gender will continue to do so into adulthood. The author of this report told us what he hopes people will take away from the research.
Well, I'm most concerned about children that are struggling with gender identity issues. I'm concerned that we not rush young children into identifying with the opposite sex. I'm concerned that a young girl that's a tomboy might be encouraged by her parents to believe she's a male, or a young boy that wants to do ballet and not play with guns might be told he's a little girl. I think we should allow children to grow up in this transition, which is young as 2 years old. I really don't understand how anybody believes they can measure the gender identification of a 2-year-old.
Dr. Lawrence Mayer works at the Department of Psychiatry at Johns Hopkins University. He says he hopes to write a book on this topic. Coming up, Olympian Ryan Lochte loses his Speedo sponsorship as the Games wrap up in Rio. And the man who championed Mother Teresa's cause for sainthood talks about dark moments in her saintly life. Thanks so much for joining us this Monday evening. I'm Brian Patrick. The Olympic flag now passes from Rio de Janeiro to Tokyo. The host city in Brazil held an elaborate closing ceremony last night. It featured Olympic athletes from around the world and traditional Brazilian dance routines. They all braved wind and rain in an open-air stadium celebrating the end of the Summer Games. Tokyo hosts the next Summer Games in the year 2020. Gymnast Simone Biles is chosen to carry the American flag during closing ceremonies.
For my first Olympic experience, it has honestly been a dream come true, and every day I wake up I get so excited to take on the new day, and every single day that I've had here has been like a dream come true, and it just keeps getting better, and I don't know how I've been so lucky and so blessed to receive the honor of being the flag bearer.
Biles, who was only 19, won 4 gold medals and 1 bronze in Rio. Ryan Lochte loses 2 major sponsors after Speedo USA and Ralph Lauren announced they are dumping the swimmer. Investigators say Lochte fabricated a tale. He was robbed at gunpoint in Rio during the Olympics. He later apologized. Speedo will donate $50,000 from Lochte's sponsorship fee to charity. Ralph Lauren says its sponsorship of Lochte was specifically in support of the Rio Olympics, and the contract will not be renewed. It's good to have Marlene Morris-Towns back with us, marketing professor at Georgetown University. Has Ryan Lochte ruined his chance for these big money sponsorships for the future?
I think that it doesn't look good for him for sponsorships going forward. There's always a chance at redemption. I think that as consumers, our attention span is relatively short, but I think 3 things are really required for a comeback after something like this with brand sponsorship. One is apologizing, so just remorse. Second is rehabilitation, and perhaps not in the literal sense of rehab, but some type of rehabilitation. And then performance. So we've seen athletes before that have apologized and just haven't performed as they did before. And so their opportunities, I think, have kind of dried up. And we haven't seen that from him.
Michael Phelps had an incident not too long ago. Has he bounced back from that?
He has, and I think that he met those criteria.
He
so
did.
I think that he apologized for his indiscretions, for his bad behavior, and he had some much more serious consequences. He had a couple of arrests for driving under the influence, but he went through a rehabilitation process. He got back in the pool, began training, seemingly has turned his life around. He has a child, and seems to be on the right path and performed.
Good example for Lochte to follow, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, Simone Biles seems to be squeaky clean. She already has a lot of sponsorships. Does she stand the opportunity for a whole lot more?
I think we are going to see a lot more of Simone Biles going forward. She already had a couple $1 million of endorsements going into the Olympics, but with her 4 gold and a bronze medal coming out, I think that we're going to see a great deal more of Simone. She's got a bubbly personality, a megawatt smile, and just seems to be full of enthusiasm and energy, and I think that that is really attractive for brands.
I love the way she used the word blessed when she talked about her success. Would you say the Rio Olympics were a marketing success?
I think that they were. I think that in a lot of ways Rio overcame a lot of obstacles that people were very worried about going in. And I think that as far as brands are concerned, they really did seem to capitalize on the spirit of the Olympics, the spirit of competition, a lot of national pride. So I think overall some brands came out really well.
What would you say would be the big winner as far as brands go?
Well, I think Procter & Gamble, to mention them again, they have kind of tied themselves to the Olympics since their Thanks Mom spots and really sponsoring moms. I think that they're always a winner. I was really impressed with the Nike ads in the Olympics this year. Nike Unlimited, they had a number of unlimited spots, and they were very creative, artsy, edgy, using Chance the Rapper, and they were just visually appealing as well as musically tied in, and I thought they were some great ones. United Airlines, I think I saw that one. I don't know how much they spent on media, but I saw it constantly, and it featured a lot of the athletes and really did capture and embraced what the Olympics is all about, while, of course, featuring their brand.
We appreciate your insight. Marlene Morris-Towns from Georgetown, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Elsewhere in the news, at least 40 people have died and hundreds of thousands have been evacuated as floods hit central and eastern India. Days of heavy rain bring the Ganges River above the danger level during the past 48 hours. Officials say the deaths were caused by drowning, electrocution, or injuries from collapsed homes. Much of India experiences flooding during this monsoon season from June through September. And a delegation from India will attend the canonization of Mother Teresa in less than 2 weeks at the Vatican. The priest who made her case for sainthood reflects on the Albanian nun's heroic faith.
It wasn't easy being Mother Teresa, okay? Just being a foundress and a leader of this 4,000 member worldwide organization would be challenging enough. But then just being Mother Teresa, go here, go there, the war there, speak there, people coming to see you, to ask you, you were always on, even on the airplane. And so we were probably assuming that, well, at least she's experiencing this wonderful union and consolation to keep her going. And then we discover that it's just heroic faith, and she lives from 4:40 in the morning until late at night, and no siesta until the very last years, and just that heroic fidelity, loving, even though part of the trial was that she felt this, the spiritual poverty of our age, she was experiencing herself. Okay, if it's the greatest poverty in the world to be unloved, unwanted, uncared for, she's experiencing that with Jesus.
Father Brian Kolodejczyk, a Canadian priest from Mother Teresa's order, is postulator of her cause. That's the person who presents a case for canonization to the Vatican. His new book, A Call to Mercy, Hearts to Love, Hands to Serve, brings together Mother Teresa's writings about the spiritual and corporal works of mercy. EWTN plans full coverage of Mother Teresa's canonization. We'll take you to the vigil, catechesis, canonization, and Mass of Thanksgiving. You'll see it all next month here on EWTN. Up next, the new school year begins with Holy Mass for Catholic schools in the Archdiocese of D.C. And a migrant family reunites in Sweden after months of anguish. Today, August 22nd, we celebrate Mary as Queen of Heaven and Earth. Pope Pius XII established this feast for the Universal Church. Our Lady, Queen of Heaven, pray for us. Thanks for joining us on this Monday evening. I'm Brian Patrick. Well, America's newest national shrine in Champion, Wisconsin attracts pilgrims on this Marian feast day. Marian expert Michael O'Neill, creator of MiracleHunter.com, Skyping with us from Chicago. Michael, would you give us a brief background of Our Lady of Good Help and the apparitions in Wisconsin?
Well, of course, Our Lady of Good Help is a very important apparition because it's the first and only approved apparition in the United States. And the story goes that there was a Belgian farm worker in her 20s, Adele Briss, who was walking to the grist mill carrying grain, and she encountered a woman standing between two trees. And when she went back to tell her family about it, they said maybe that's a soul in purgatory visiting the earth. And so she, on her way to Mass the next week, next Sunday, with her two sisters, she encountered the woman again. And the parish priest told her, ask who the woman is. So on the way home, they saw the woman dressed in white with a yellow sash and golden hair and stars around her head. And she said, "Who, in God's name, who are you?" And she said, "I am the Queen of the universe." And she gave Adele instructions on how to catechize the young and teach them the sacraments and the catechism. And so that was the central message of Our Lady of Good Help.
What a beautiful story, and one not as well known as Lourdes. Apparently, this apparition occurred within about a year of St. Bernadette seeing Our Lady in Lourdes. Is that unusual in the history of apparitions to have them so close on the calendar, but yet continents away?
No, I think what's really interesting is we all know of these very classic examples of Lourdes, Fatima, and Guadalupe. But if you check out my site, MiracleHunter.com, I've cataloged 2,500 claims of Marian apparitions happening all around the world. So as you might guess, Mary appears at all sorts of times, and some are very close, some are far away. In Belgium, for example, in Bereng and Bonnot in 1932 and 1932, 1933, there was a back-to-back apparition happening right there. So there's no rhyme or reason as far as the dates go, as far as I can tell.
This designation of the site in Wisconsin as a national shrine by the U.S. Catholic bishops, how significant is that for the church here in the United States?
Well, of course, Our Lady of Good Help in Champion, Wisconsin is the major shrine of Our Lady under this title due to the fact that it's an authenticated Marian apparition. But when the local bishop made the declaration, now he has sort of the approval of all the other bishops by giving it this national shrine designation. So this is another level of recognition, cementing it as the first and only Marian apparition approved in the United States.
So finally, should we have devotion to Our Lady of Good Help?
I think it's a message that's so important for even today. Of course, this happened in 1859, which seems like a long time ago, but Our Lady appeared asking to catechize the young and teach them about the sacraments. That's as important as ever now in today's world. So I think Our Lady of Good Help is a apparition that we can all engage in.
Michael O'Neill with MiracleHunter.com joining us from Chicago. Thank you, Michael.
Thanks for having me.
And Catholic schools welcome back thousands of students this week. Washington, D.C.'s Cardinal Donald Wuerl offers a blessing and a challenge to Catholic teachers and principals. Wyatt Goolsby reports tonight.
And our task, the task of every teacher, the task of everyone involved in Catholic education, the task of our entire faith community is to pass on to the next generation the light.
Cardinal Donald Wuerl opening the new school year by urging Catholic principals, teachers, and staff to stay true to the teachings of the Church. Hundreds packed the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception to pray for Catholic schools at all levels. According to the National Catholic Educational Association, Catholic schools in the U.S. have seen a steady decrease in enrollment. Since 2006, the number of schools has decreased 14%, and the number of students dropped by more than 400,000.
God Himself is present in everything, so that keeps me steady, keeps me grounded.
Louisa Dwyer has seen enrollment go up and down for 3 decades. That's how long she's been teaching at St. Jerome Academy in Maryland. She's also seen how Catholic schools have shaped the lives of her students.
And I see the benefits they have become in so many different careers that they have taken upon, their growth, and they always come back to thank not just myself, but other teachers.
Students agree it's helped them grow in their faith.
Well, I feel like everyone is just always so welcoming, and they always are trying to make you feel like you belong, and everyone is centered around like one faith, and so there's a sense of unity.
A sense of unity is exactly what keeps Lauren Farage engaged in her Catholic faith. She moved from England to Maryland 3 years ago.
It gives you a special community, and having that behind me, especially in our move, it has been something to help me in that transition, and it's a community that you'll find anywhere you go.
Cardinal Wuerl urges teachers to build that community by serving as a personal witness of Christ's love. Wyatt Goolsby, EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you, Wyatt. A migrant family enjoys an unlikely reunion in Sweden. Nadir Azizi saying, "We were hopeful to see our son again, but we had moments of doubt." Fleeing Iran for Sweden, the parents lost track of their 14-year-old son during a nighttime transfer in Turkey. They didn't know what happened to him until a chance encounter in a small Swedish town where they learned he'd been placed in a nearby foster home. That teen has been granted asylum as an unaccompanied minor, but asylum applications of other family members have been rejected. For now, they are grateful to know their boy is safe. Until tomorrow, for the EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Brian Patrick. We leave you tonight with some thoughts from young runners inspired by Olympic champion Usain Bolt. He won gold at his final Olympic race, completing the triple-triple.
Usain Bolt is my motivation. Every time I need to get up or every time I'm not feeling confident in track, I always just watch his videos.
He's great, he can run fast.
I would like to run like him.
He's the world record holder, so it's a really big thing.
It's amazing that someone can accomplish those kind of things and that your body can actually be that fast and have that kind of dynamics.
Eu gosto do Bolt porque ele é exemplo.
Usain Bolt is like the epitome of track and field. Whenever I think about track, you think of Usain Bolt because he's the fastest man to ever do it.
He's inspired so many people across the world, and I think people really, I don't think they understand how much work he's put into this, but when you know, as an athlete yourself, you really do appreciate what he does.